startup duties of the stream. All right, got some music, tweeted, that's good. So today is going to be making a Svelte project. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a new folder in here. Oh, hey Matthias, how's it going? So I decided this project should be called That's What He Said. So this is about Michael Scott's blunders, misquotes on The Office, and I've been calling it for the time being Michael's Misquotes, but I decided that the better answer was to call it That's What He Said. So that's what it's going to be called. Yeah, streaming marathon with the conference. Yeah, definitely. I have also been popping in and out of Outlier all day. There were a bunch of talks that I couldn't see because they were too early for me. Because I didn't even realize the conference started so early, but alas, it did. So I have to catch up on a lot of those tonight. Although the conference keeps going all night, basically. So it's I definitely got to spend some time with that one. All right, so I created this new folder. I realize now, like, it's kind of annoying to name this folder That's What He Said, because now I have to, like, anytime I want to, like, cd into this folder, I have to type that whole long word out. But that's fine. I'll leave it at that. Okay, now I'm gonna open a browser, which I'm going to use heavily today, because whenever I'm coding, it's always going to be with my browser open, Googling stuff most of the time. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my GitHub. Okay. And I'm going to make a new repository, and I'm going to call it That's What He Said. Cool. Then I'm trying to think about how I should do this actually. Should I just keep it as wonder if I should, yeah, I guess I can keep it at like top level. Like I could have my Svelte project just in this folder, I guess. That might be a good idea. I kind of like that idea, so maybe I'll do that. So it's going to be kind of a weird, like, nested file structure, but that's okay. So I made a new repository, which I will connect this to in a second. But let's see. First, I wanted to go down here and copy over my Svelte project template. So, and I need to remember, I need to remember not to do this. So Last time, so I made a little adaptation of the Svelte, the basic Svelte like starter template that has a few changes, but I forgot to update the README where it has this, where you copy it from. So the last time I did this, I tried to copy over my own, why is it doing it like that? My own template, and then I did not. I actually just copied over the normal Svelte template, and it took me a long time to figure that out. Okay, cool. So I should have in here a Svelte app with some stuff in it. Cool. Now I'm going to open that up in VS Code. Okay, that's what he said, Svelte app. Cool. And then, what is the shortcut in VS Code? There you go. Then we can do like npm install. Cool, seems good. npm start. Huh. This has some stuff in it, it seems. No? It shouldn't have some stuff in it. Let me get rid of that console and open a new console. Perhaps I have opened the wrong terminal. Okay. Interesting. Apparently, it is still running something from one of my old local servers on here. Let me quit out of VS Code and reopen it and see if this solves some of the issue. Is it the browser cache? Maybe. It could be like I was playing around with a different Svelte project previously. Huh. How strange. I'm gonna just like rename this actually. I think there might be a name clash here. Interesting. Why does this have stuff in it? This should not have a store in it. That's very strange. Didn't I just copy this from here? Oh, interesting. I think I messed up something on my Svelte template. I shouldn't have any stores in there. That's very strange. Odd. Well, another option would be just to do most of this stuff. I can just delete anything that's here already. Okay, now this should not have anything in it, correct? How bizarre, it still has stuff in it. Interesting, perhaps it is the cache. How do I clear my browser cache real quick? Clear browsing. Data. Let's just do that. This seems better. It was the cache. Perhaps Matthias has had the same issue before. Yeah, I was working on another Svelte app earlier today, so that must have been the issue. Okay, so we have a clean Svelte project. Nice. I should put this on Git. I said I was going to do that, so why don't I... Command-Shift-R, that would do it. Nice. Why don't I actually put this on Git before I get too far? So where was that? I just made a new repository. Yes, indeed. Okay. So I'm actually just going to put this Svelte app. So what did I call this? Michael misquotes app. I'm going to make this the Git repository. Just gonna make a quick commit. All right, cool. I also realized I should probably make this bigger so that people can actually see it. Hopefully that is much easier to see. Let me know if things are not easily seeable or if sound is bad or anything. I do try to test it, but sometimes you never know. Okay, so this is a like bare bones Svelte application that currently renders a blank page. So if I go into the primary Svelte component here and I just, start adding some content like in H1, except I should say hello Twitch. Then hopefully this should render and it should say hello Twitch, but it doesn't, so there's something wrong. Oh, I thought I had it set to do npm start, but you're right that perhaps it's because indeed, okay. This is the problem. Thank you so much, Matthias. So the other project I was working on recently was one where I had not made the Webpack setup. I actually do normally have run npm dev. And then this explains actually why this was probably happening earlier as well. Yeah. So I have as my main development server command, but the people who made the template that I was using previously had it set as npm start, which was very confusing. So I typed npm start right now out of muscle memory, but that is not the correct dev server command if you want live reloading. So thank you for catching that. Okay, so this is a basic Svelte app. You can write, HTML, you can write CSS in here, you can write JavaScript, all that good stuff. This is basically just the starter template that you will get if you go to the Svelte repository. The only things I have changed in my starter template is that I removed support for TypeScript because I don't use TypeScript. and I changed the prettier configuration a little bit. Mainly the default configuration, they have it like styles are first or something, and I don't like that, so I put script and then DOM and then styles. I added, the most important thing I added was this functionality. So the pudding has a really nice little module you can copy basically that they've written that I think Russell wrote over at the pudding, which interfaces with Google Docs to grab essentially the, it'll grab the text of a Google Doc and then use this thing called ArchieML, which is like a markup language that you write in your Google Doc, and then it will parse it into your web project as a JSON file. So I have added that to this project. It basically just requires this script, and then the only other thing that we should have to change is here is where you tell it which document to fetch. So let me show you ArchieML. Let me figure out, I'm gonna make the mistake of showing everyone Google Drive. Okay, so this is the document that I have, which is written in ArchieML. ArchieML. Okay, so this is ArchieML. It's a markup language that was developed at the New York Times, I think. Yeah, New York Times. It's really, really cool. So basically, it's just a way to write structured, formatted text in a Google Doc and then parse it as JSON into your web project. And I think they have a bunch of other parsers too. Like, there's lots of different ways to use it. This is pretty low level, the basic language itself. But it's very, very nice. Yeah, so you can use R, you can use it with Ruby, Python, all that good stuff to basically take like things you write in a Google Doc and put them into JSON. So I'll show you how that works. So I have this document where I have taken each of the data points in my giant spreadsheet, so each of these misquotes that I've collected, and I have made them each their own little self-contained thing. And this will basically render it as an array of objects, each one of which have a bunch of associated data that you just identify using like the key and then colon and then the value. And you can do all kinds of stuff in here. You can make like little arrays. Like here I've made, this will be an object, which it'll have like ID, season, episode, and then all that stuff. And then I've put the actual quote itself in its own array, which has different speaker and different lines. So you'll see how this works when I actually parse it to JSON, but it's a very, very cool way to structure sort of raw text data and also to collaborate on stuff, because you can obviously have like your fellow collaborators or writers in a Google Doc, and they can collaborate on this without having to know the code. So what you do is, and I think this is actually already linked to here, so I don't think I need to copy this over. But you just take this link, the sharing link that you enable on the Google Doc, and then you copy and paste the document ID into here. And then you give it a file path where to write the output to. So this will write this out to a JSON file in this folder. And I do need to go down to the bottom and check, because I think I added something which will screw this up. Yeah, this is going to mess it up. So basically what I did over the last week was write all these things up in here as in the format that I wanted them. And I've done the first 2 seasons, so that's going to be sort of my test set going forward. You run this by running npm run, wait, what did I call that again? Oh yeah, okay, it's npm fetch doc, that's what it's called. So with any luck, this wrote the stuff out here. It did indeed. So that's really nice. So you can see that we have an object and we have an array called misquotes, and it has all of these things in here. Now this is like impossible to read, obviously, because it's a compacted JSON file. But I will try to read this out in a format that's easier to look at. So if we go over to app.svelte, and we say, let me figure out, how do we import this JSON? I think I have this package, yeah, called rollup plugin JSON. But I forget the command for this. This is a bunch of crap. I don't want all that. I just want to know what the command is for this. Okay, I think I'm trying to figure out how to import this. I think you say import star as copy from what is this? Data slash copy.json. I think this is how you write it. And then we say like, okay, that is how we write it. Let me pull this over here because I don't know how much you can see. Let me check how much my camera is blocking. Yeah, that's annoying. I can make this smaller like this. You don't need to see the giant screen up here. So trying to make this bigger so that everybody can read it. Hopefully you can read this, sort of. So you can see that this JSON that we imported from the Google Doc is now structured data. It's this array called misquotes, and you can see how they're structured. So for example, each one has variables like cut time, episode number, episode title, error domain, and then each of them should have a array called lines, which has each line within it. And the reason that the lines is in an array and it's not just like speaker and line at the top level is because some of these have multiple lines from multiple speakers, and so I had to account for that. So an example of that is this one, where you can see that there's 5 different lines because Michael and Stanley have this exchange about collard greens versus colored greens. And so this had to be its own array so that I could access each of these individually if I need to. Or at least in my mind, that's how it worked. So yeah, ArchieML is really cool. Anybody that's working on stuff, I highly recommend it because you can do other stuff that's also pretty cool. So like right now, I just have all of this data in here, which like, perhaps there's another way I could have done this. You know, maybe I could have just like figured out another way to do it. But you could also like write the rest of your copy in here. Like this project is going to have a lot more text. You know, it's going to have stuff like paragraphs of explanation. It's going to have like titles and headers and all that kind of stuff. It's going to have an about section, all that. And so I can write all of that copy in here. And then anytime it changes in the Google Doc, I just have to refetch the document and it'll automatically update in my project. So, you know, I could write title and it's called, that's what he said. And then I could have like some other description, which is like, an exploration of Michael Scott's misquotes, mispronunciations, and botched phrases. And then if I go back here and run I probably have to stop running my server before I do this. So hopefully that ran properly, and then instead of saying hello Twitch in this H1, we can say copy.title, which says copy.deck. And cross my fingers. Look at that. It's magic, isn't it? And you can also see how it has changed in the structured data object that we have here. We have now title and deck at the same top level as we have this misquotes array. So pretty cool. ArchieML. All right. So I'm going to just plow forward with this. I'm going to try to get... My goal is to just sort of start rendering some of these cards that we needed. So, you know, I said that each of these misquotes in here is going to be a little card eventually, and we're not going to show them all at the same time, but just as I'm getting the project set up and debugging it, I just want to like get something on the screen. So that's what I'm going to try to do here, is just set up some basic cards. And for those that are unaware, this is sort of what we set up last time. A basic sketch, nothing too fancy. This still needs refining. But this is what I mean when I say the cards. So I want like a little text box that's basically going to have all of that data in for each of these misquotes in it. And I'm just going to start rendering these as like unstyled plain text basically to begin with. And then we will slowly add to it as we go forward. I do also have, so what I've been trying to do is get like some test data to work with in the beginning of the project. So I mentioned that I have done most of the data in the copy here for the first 2 seasons worth of data. And then I also have this supercut of the first 2 seasons worth of clips. Okay. Oh, this is actually a classic. So he says, I didn't know this until I listened to a podcast and they mentioned this one. Michael says in here, I bet Luke Perry's friends don't treat him like this. And he points to this poster. This is not Luke Perry. This is a poster of James Dean. So it's a classic. Yeah, so hopefully I don't get DMCA'd for pulling this up and playing 10 seconds of The Office. But this is what I have so far. So I will put this video in here at some point, and the idea is to link the video to these cards and sort of synchronize how they play. But that'll be for another day. Today's goal is much more modest. So I think I'm going to make, in my SRC here, I'm going to start making some other components. So I'm going to make a component that's called cardList.svelte. And then I'm gonna make this the wrapper for all those cards. How do I want to do this? Okay, so I need to have a main div on the outside, which is the wrapper. And inside of that, I want to render one card for each of the misquotes if they exist. So that's something I should have mentioned as well, is that this actually does have empty, this has some empty ones in it. Like, for example, in this episode, there was no misquotes, but I still made an entry for it in the misquotes, like data set. Because the reason for that is that I want to have every episode logged, even if it doesn't have any misquotes. But I don't, and the reason I want to have them logged is because in this little histogram down here that we're going to make, I still want to have like a placeholder for the episodes where there's no misquotes. But then in the cards up here, I don't want to render a card for it. So let's say I will probably eventually put this copy variable in a store, or have it as a variable that I'm like passing around instead of just calling it up here. But for the time being, I'm just going to copy it up here. And then this div is going to get an ID, which is called like card wrapper. This is all temporary because all the styles are going to change. But I just want to make something that'll, you know, sort of be a placeholder. So this is going to be display flex, and we will call it like, I guess it can just be display flex for now. I'll style it later. Okay, so then inside of each one of these, inside of this wrapper, I want to say each, and then I'm going to have to look up my Svelte notation a lot because I haven't memorized it yet. How did I do this? I have Let me look something up real quick. I'm going to reference another project that I did. Okay. So I'm just going to do a little shortcut up here in my script, I guess, which is probably a good idea, which is to say like quotes. We'll say like let quotes equals copy dot misquotes. So this is that array. And this is just going to help me save some time because I did say there's this other stuff, like there's this title, this deck, and then but in this case, what we want is just the array. So then I can say like each one of these quotes is quote, and each one of these has an ID, should have a unique ID if I made the right choice. Then I want to render a component, which I'm going to call card. I guess I can just call it a card. I don't need to call it anything else because it's going to be a card. And I'm going to pass in that particular quote, which I am, which is in this loop, basically. Okay. And then I have to actually go make this card component. And then I'm going to want to import this component over here, which I always forget to do, but very important. Card from card.svelte. Okay. And then this is actually where the magic is going to happen. So this is where I'm actually going to render all the stuff, essentially, from the all the data. So first I need to make sure I define that parameter or that prop called quote. So I have to define that up here. And then for each one of these, we want to have a div, and we will call this class is called like card. And then inside each card, what do we need to render? Oh, sorry, Matthias, I just saw. Okay, what is the font you are using in the editor? Ooh, excellent question. I think I'm using Input by David Jonathan Ross. Let me double check that. How do you find out? Input. That is indeed the font I'm using. Yeah, it's a very nice font. Yeah, really cool font, specially made for programming. It has sans serif, serif, monospaced. It has like all kinds of stuff you can read about. I find it really, really nice. And the cool thing about Input is that you can download it for free for private use in code editors, which is what I did. So, yeah. Also, if anybody is looking, this is a great time to shout out David's Font of the Month Club. So David Jonathan Ross is a typeface designer. He's one of my favorites. He's really, really amazing at what he does. He's made fonts like Roslindale, which you're now seeing all over the place on the web. I love this font. It's gorgeous. And he has this thing, which is really cool, which is called the Font of the Month Club. So if you pay $6 a month, which I do, you can join this, and every single month he emails you a font to your inbox that is like a new font. David has been in the business for countless years. He's a real pro type designer. His fonts are amazing, and you get all sorts of fonts like this directly delivered to your inbox for an incredibly low price of $5 a month. So hopefully I did my best infomercial impression there, and I've convinced you all to join the Font of the Month Club. Definitely worth it. Get really nice fonts. Yeah, really cool. Okay. So back to the Svelte app. I was making this card component. So I have a quote, and that should have a bunch of crap in it. And I need to render what? This is where I'm going to reference my Figma file. Oh, that's too skinny. Let's make that a little bigger. Oh, what is the command in Figma to hide your... Oh, God, I always forget this. What is the command to hide all the UI stuff? Show hide UI is Control/. Okay. Aha. Okay. So I need to have the title. So let's call this, I'm just going to call this an H3 and say the title is quote dot ep title. I'm pretty sure that's what I called it. And then we will have a span. No, I don't want a span. I want a div there. And this is going to be quote dot, what did I call this? You can tell I'm really good at remembering what I title all these variables. Okay, so there's season and then ep num. Okay, cool. I'm gonna say season. Then we want to span. And this is gonna be, oh, and then we want this, and then we want to have quote dot ep num. Hopefully that renders how I want it to render. Oh, cool. Matthias says he started using Figma thanks to my stream. Awesome. Yeah. And I don't know for anybody else that's watching in the chat, I don't know if anybody uses Svelte, if anybody has questions what I'm doing. I'm kind of just coding my way, plotting my way through this, but if you have questions about any of this stuff, why are these brackets here, what is export, I will try desperately to answer your question, and Matthias will probably correct me because he's much better at Svelte than I am. But don't be shy, ask away if you have questions. Okay. Oh, awesome. Okay, Matthias is doing a Svelte Uncont session at Outlier tomorrow. That's very cool. I am going to attend that for sure. Okay, so we have what he said, and then I'm just going to put in here, I'm just going to put a couple spaces for a placeholder, because I'm going to write some code in a second that actually says what he did, but first I just want to get some of the easy stuff out of the way. Another div, it's called error explained, to decide if this is going to be double capitals or what it's going to be. And then we have like a paragraph, which is going to say quote dot explanation. I'm pretty sure that's what I called it. We will soon find out if that's incorrect or correct. Then I'm gonna make like a wrapper div here that's like details, and then within that details wrapper, I'm gonna do say error type, and then I'm gonna have another span that says quote dot error domain. Yeah, so instead of type, I'm actually gonna say domain. And then I'm gonna have another div that says maybe this should be a div. This is all gonna get restyled later, so it doesn't really matter. It's gonna say writer, we're gonna span, and it's gonna say quote dot writer. I don't have the IMDb rating right now, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use it, so I'm going to leave that out for now. But the thing that I do need is if there is such a thing as an error type, because these all have a domain, they should, but they don't all have a type, so we can do a little Svelte magic with conditional statements. And we can say if quote dot error type, then make a div that says error type and a span that has error.type. And then I need a slash if. Cool. Now I need to go up here and do the what he said part. So this is where I am going to go in and do another loop. So say each, what do I call this? This is called lines. Yes, okay. Let's say let's make this variable up here called lines. Let's say each lines as line. Don't have an ID for these. I think Svelte can manage it in this case. I don't know if that's true. I'm not very used to the way that Svelte auto assigns IDs in loops. But I guess we'll find out. So we have this div which is going to say line.speaker, I'm pretty sure it's called. Yes. And then we'll have another div which says line.line. Ah, okay, cool. Matthias says, yeah, you only need to have the ID if you're going to apply transitions. Ah, very good to know. Yeah, this is not going to have any transitions, so that shouldn't be an issue. All right, so this was basically just a bunch of HTML. and that is ready, hopefully. Now, what this made me realize is I need to go up here and do a little bit. I need to add another if statement up here because I need to say if quote dot lines. Oh. Interesting. So if I just, so if I do like each lines as speaker line, then I don't have to write like line dot speaker and line dot line. I can just write speaker and line. That's a cool idea. I very rarely use destructuring because it still confuses me, even though I know that I should just like buckle down and like make it make sense in my head. But it's not. My default state is like I rarely use destructuring unless someone tells me to. But I should start using it. That's a good idea. But I realize I need to put this if statement in here because we only want to render a card if the data has a lines variable, because they don't all have the lines variables. Remember, we have those placeholder ones which don't have a lines variable. Okay, so we have made a ton of changes. I have no idea if this is going to render at all. Probably not, because it isn't rendering. So clearly something, oh, well, maybe it's because we haven't put the card list in the app component. We need to do that. So that will say all right, first error. What's the first error? Cannot have duplicate keys in a keyed each. Aha. My guess about what happened is that so we have card list and we have quote as quote.id. Yeah, there is like a 99% chance that I accidentally typed the same ID twice. Like, pretty positive that that happened. Okay, well here's an issue right away. There wasn't a space between there. Now let's go through here and look for issues. One way we might be able to fix this is just by removing the key from here, and then Svelte will assign its own key. That might work. Error is not defined. Interesting. Card.svelte. Line 3. Line 24, thank you. Oh, I wrote error.type. What I meant to write was quote dot error type. Oh wow, look at that. Okay. Well, indeed, that is probably what I told it to do. I believe it. Okay, so this is what raw HTML looks like. Oh boy. Okay, we can do a little bit of cleanup. I can't even read this, so we gotta work on this a little bit. Okay, number one is we want display flex, and then we want flex direction column. Okay, that's better. That's better. Oh boy. Yeah, I think I really botched, much like Michael botches his phrases, I really botched my spans and my divs here, so this is kind of bad. It would also help if we gave each of these things like a little bit of a style so that they look more appropriate. Okay. The other thing we can do that might just help is to have, well, I'll do this in here, I guess. So the first thing I'll say is we have dot card. I just want this to have a little border. So we'll just say like 1px black solid. And then, oh, there you go. I don't really want this to be full width at the moment. Maybe I will make it 50% width. Why not? That seems good. Yeah, huge fan of Flexbox. I mean, like 2 lines of code and I turn in it, you know, it just immediately like did all this. And in fact, as I have written this now, I realize I should probably put some padding between them. Is there like so if I use CSS grid, I could just do like grid gap. I wonder, do you just put padding around each element? Do you remember, Matthias? Or is there like an actual flex padding thing? Maybe you just put padding around each element. I could just put like margin. Yeah, okay. I'll just put like margin bottom will be like 1 round. Okay. That's better. And I also want to give these like a margin left. It's just gonna be like 1. I don't want each of the child elements. I want the whole thing to have that. So this is gonna have like, oh boy, here we go. Top and bottom or left and right comes first. It's always a guess. Okay, I got it right. So the shorthand for shorthand for margin, shorthand for those things, I always forget. It's just, yeah. So it's like 10 pixels of padding. Okay, we are on our way. Yeah, nice to see live coding sessions and hear that Topra working. Wow, I wonder, did you already know that I had a Topra, or could you just tell from the sound of it, the thunk thunk sound that I was using a Topra? That's pretty impressive if you could just tell from the sound. Every live coding stream is always, you know, full of keyboard nerds. Like if you just like bring up the word keyboards in a live coding stream, I think it will just completely derail the whole conversation. Like I remember I was watching Shirley Wu's stream one time. Shirley does really awesome streams. And she was like, oh, you know, I've been thinking about this keyboard. Like what keyboard do you think I should get? Or what keycap set do you think I should get? And it was just like the whole rest of the stream just devolved into like 45-minute discussion about like keyboards in the chat. So oh cool, you bring your HHKB everywhere. Yes, this is maybe dangerous to do if I'm gonna like unplug my keyboard. Hopefully it works still when I plug it back in. This is the beauteous keyboard I am using right now. I don't know if the camera is focusing on this well. Aha. It is a Realforce R2 55-gram weight with a Normaforce Mark II housing in retro refrigerator. Very nice. Yeah, I broke down. I had to get the Norbauer case, had to do it. Mainly because I got into, okay, so the main reason was because, I mean, obviously like Norbauer cases are like, you know, holy grail case material and they're so cool. And the retro refrigerator in particular, like this turquoise blue color, I was obsessed with. And then I got, but so like when I got into keyboards, you know, I started like researching and I like made my first, I made my first purchases like my group buy purchases, and then that was like a year and a half ago, or like 2 years almost even, and like I'm still waiting for some of the parts that I purchased. And so you know, I was like, you do a group, you get into keyboards, and then you like do 6 months of research, and then you like finally put down all this money for a group buy, and you're like, okay, now I wanted a nice keyboard like 6 months ago, and now I have to wait another year, so like a year and a half. So at that point then, Norbauer started running his group buy for the Norba out like really soon. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna buy a Real Force because everybody said it was amazing anyways. So I was like, I'm just gonna buy a Real Force and then I'll have a nice keyboard today and I'll get a nice case for it in like a month. And I won't have to wait, you know, a year and a half to get this, like, to get the stuff I ordered. So yeah. Yeah, we don't talk about how much it costs. No, we don't talk about that. That's a secret. Although it's not really, because you can of course just go on the website. Okay, I have to do some more coding. I have to do some styling. Keyboards, I just said I was going to get derailed by keyboards, and lo and behold, I got derailed by keyboards. Okay. So let's just start from the top down. H3. I'm gonna make this a little bigger. I'm gonna make this like is gonna be like 3 rem. I'm always just guessing. What is? I don't actually know what a rem is right now on this. It looks like 12 pixels. Oh, 16 pixels. That's okay. That's what it should be. Okay, so this is where we get to start doing all the fun calculations. Oh, I need to see my I need to see my UI again. This was 40. Okay, so now we get to pull out our trusty calculator. Let's say 40 divided by 16 is 2.5. Cool. 2.5 rems. And I don't have these fonts loaded yet, so I'm just gonna leave it right now as the font that it is. I'll just change the fonts to like system defaults for now, and I think that's fine. And then margin top, I'm just gonna make it 0 for now, and I'm gonna say margin bottom is like 0.5 rem. I know there's some default styles on here that I want to take a look at this and make sure, okay, that it doesn't have any default padding on it. Cool. Although I do want to say that the font style should, or not style, font weight should be 400? Is 400? Yeah, I don't want it to be bold. 400 is what I want. Basically, this rest of the stream is going to be like me trying to sort of, me just trying to style this stuff. So if you don't enjoy watching me write CSS, I don't know how much longer I'll stream, but I'm just going to write this until I can make sure this is like looking decent with the with this stuff. Okay, so this probably needs to be a span. is one of the issues. Okay, indeed. And then why is there a space after season 1? Maybe I will just put that there, and then do that. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I guess that is what it's supposed to be. Okay, that's what it is. What is this class called? This is called... I just needed to style it the same for the season and the episodes, so I'm gonna call it season app. That's a terrible, terrible, terrible name. You can tell that I don't use like BEM naming scheme or like any proper naming scheme, and part of that is because when I'm using Svelte, I'm really lazy because Svelte has contextual CSS or like scoped CSS. So it makes it really easy to just write like H3 in here, and I can write H3 in a different component as a different thing, and it'll render them both separately because it'll give them unique classes. And it's not like a good habit, it's definitely lazy, and I should use proper CSS naming, but maybe I'll clean it up later. Who knows? Famous last words. Okay, so... I'm just gonna say sans serif. Actually, this one is Helvetica. You know, I think because I have these, I will need to load these fonts eventually, but I do have them installed on my computer. So I can say editorial new. And I don't know if that worked. Maybe is it called editorial new, or is it called, it is called editorial new. I thought I had these locally installed and it should render, but perhaps it's because I'm using a trial version that it's not rendering correctly. It's okay. Okay, and then the season 1, episode 2, it is bold Helvetica 14 point, and the color is this. God, full font weight 600, I'm gonna say. Cool. Okay, so I actually don't want this to have any margin. Okay, I'm actually going to want it to have like a negative margin or something because I want it to be tighter in there. I think if I just adjust the line height, it'll do that. The only thing is, if I adjust the line height, then if I ever have a case in which the in which this wraps around, it's gonna look not good. I wonder if a negative margin will work. I'm kind of curious, actually. Okay. Let's leave it at that. Then we have the what he said. Okay, so that and the error explained, I'm gonna call those, let's call those H4s in this case. And then we can give those how big were these supposed to be? $24. Okay. 24 is 1.5 rounds. I can do math. 600 I still think is bold. Pretty sure that's bold. And the other thing about these were that they had something else interesting about them. The tracking was minus 4%. Okay. Oh, and then I'm going to want to give them a pretty big margin top. 52. Why the hell is that 52? That shouldn't be 52. Like 48. What I really should do is give this a margin bottom. And everything should just have a margin bottom in order to be very, like, accurate. So I'm actually just going to give this a margin bottom of 12 pixels. Hey, it's working, it's working. Okay, nice. What else do we have to do? Should we style the quotes section? That sounds like a good idea. Okay, so line.speaker. These should be spans. As I said, I'm very good at spans versus divs, since I pretty much messed up every single one. That's speaker, quote. Now, what is the font size on these? 16, one rem. Seems good. And then we want the same thing for the quote. Difference being that it is not bold. Nice. This is going to look different when we switch to pitch, so I'm not really worried about the fact that it looks a little light here. That's not really bothering me. What is bothering me is that we need to do text transform capitalize on the speaker, and that we need to put a colon after the speaker. Aha. Now that's good. Oh, okay, that's a problem. Yeah. Okay. Well, should have seen that one coming. How about we wrap this guy in a div? And there's probably something more semantic I could use than a div. Now this is going to be called quote, and this is actually going to be changed to line. Again, very unique and inventive class names here. What is the margin between these? Let's call it 0.5 rounds. Seems good. Yeah. Maybe this needs to be a little tighter and this needs a little more spacing now that I look at it. We could deal with that later. This is shaping up. Look at this. Doesn't look half bad. Yeah, I like it. Okay. So then for the error explanation, let me see, where is this? Oh. Okay. So in here, the only paragraph tag that we have at the moment is this quote explanation. I think that'll probably remain the only paragraph tag here, so I'm going to go ahead and just style it using the paragraph instead of giving it a class or something. 16 Helvetica 130%. Okay. Helvetica sans serif. Font size 1 round. Line height 3. Okay, then what's the next thing? Oh, and I'm going to give this a margin bottom 40. I'm probably going to adjust the spacing, but you know, for now that's okay. Okay. Then we need to get into the details here. Aha. Okay, so these are all going to be rendered in the same size and type. That's why I put this all in one thing. .details. This is Helvetica regular 14. Okay. This needs to be a span, can already tell. Same thing here. Same thing here. Wrap these in divs. Yeah, okay. Call each of these a details item. And the only reason for that is so I can put some space between them. Oops. Cool. It looks like it's supposed to look. This might be a little tight here. I like it in that case, but with the descenders it looks a little tight there. We'll have to see. A lot of this stuff is going to have to be adjusted. I don't think this is... I'm not sure if this is... Oh, this is the correct font, I think. Oh, it is editorial new. Okay, cool. All right, so this worked. We have a Svelte app, and we have this list of all of the cards which are being rendered from our Archie ML document here. Pretty cool, I think. You can just run npm fetch doc, and it will render all of these. I want to make sure of a couple of the key things. Okay, so there was an episode in between here. Wait a minute, which episode? No. Basketball, the Alliance. Okay, yeah, so in between Diversity Day and the Alliance, you see Season 1, Episode 2, Season 1, Episode 4. So it skips Episode 3, which was Healthcare, because that didn't have any misquotes in it. So it's only rendering one of these cards for cases where we actually have a misquote. So that's pretty cool. And we have all the information we need. The quotes are rendering with separate lines, separate speakers. It's all looking good. This is another reason actually to use Archie ML, is that it will automatically do it'll automatically do things like smart quotes, like the markup when you write it in. If you were to write it as like pure HTML or something, it doesn't use things like smart quotes and smart apostrophes. So you see here, this is a good example where it's automatically rendered this as a smart apostrophe. And you can tell the difference between that and this apostrophe, which is straight up, versus the one which is angled. So typographically, the correct way to render apostrophes is at an angle like this, and it's a different Unicode character. But if you just type it in your code editor, like in HTML, it'll usually come out as a straight quote. And the reason it did that in this case is because Google Docs didn't recognize should've as a correct contraction. But what I can do is I can go in here and automatically edit that very easily so that it's a smart quote. And the nice thing about that is that in comparison to a lot of other rendering systems, since this is in a Google Doc, it will already be formatted correctly in the Google Doc, and we don't have to format it in the HTML. So we don't have to like use a plugin, for example, that will go in and change all the straight quotes to smart quotes. There's plugins that do that, but they're kind of annoying. And there's things like this where like this is an ellipsis, and if you type ... in HTML, it'll just render period, period, period. But the ellipsis itself is actually a separate Unicode character, which is it's tightened up a little bit, so it looks different. So things like that, things like M dashes, you know, like all these little typographic styling things that are normally kind of annoying to do in HTML. We don't really have to worry about that because we can format it in the Google Doc however we want it, and that will transfer over to the HTML when we pull it in. So that's another reason this is kind of a cool method. But yeah, I think that's a good stopping point for today. Thank you for stopping in, everybody. Thank you for watching some Svelte coding. This was pretty simple, I think. Pretty good introduction to kind of, you know, just using variables, props, passing things around, components in Svelte. I hope the ArchEML stuff was exciting and fun. I think that's pretty cool. I think next week I will try to focus on coding this little histogram thingy here. So that's going to be a lot more DOM work. I'm not sure if I'm going to do SVG or if I'm going to make it HTML, and each of these elements is going to be a little HTML, and they're going to be laid out with Flexbox. I kind of love using Flexbox to lay things out like this, but we'll have to see. It might just be easier to do SVG, who knows. And then maybe at some point we're going to get into the YouTube video, which is going to be cool. I think the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to embed this video that I have made as a YouTube video. And there's a YouTube API that you can use that will like skip to a specific part in the video. So I'm going to try to have it so that it's like a clicker. And if you click somewhere, it will skip to the next part of the video. Or there'll probably be an autoplay mechanism. But yeah, I'm going to try to figure some of that out at some point. But next week we'll definitely be coding the histogram, maybe getting the video rendered. So, all right, thank you very much for stopping by. I will be back next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.